Hello, gorgeous entrepreneur. It's Tash, Corbin here, and welcome to another episode of the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. This is episode number 285, which means you can find all the relevant links and show notes for today's episode over at tashcorbin.com/285. In today's episode, I'm going to help you write copy that converts. So when it comes to writing for your business, this is something that I know a lot of people struggle with, and it can be really difficult to understand how exactly to word things or what types of phrases to use or how to really connect with your audience in writing in a way that's going to help them make a decision to buy from you. So we're going to dive deep into this in today's episode. I've got 5 juicy tips for you. Let's dive in. I'm Tash Corbin, and this is the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. Firstly, I want to say that copy and writing for your business is a skill. And as far as I'm concerned, it's a non-negotiable skill that we need to develop as entrepreneurs and business owners. Yes, you can absolutely outsource copywriting and engage experts, but in this age of swipe files, people using specific terms and phrases and structures to their writing and outsourcing their copy to the experts, it's easy to get lost in what I would say is a sea of sameness. It seems to me that the longer I'm in the online business world, the more I see the same things being repeated over and over again. And so whilst you might feel that engaging an expert to write your copy for you is a way for you to not have to learn how to write for your business and not have to learn how to speak for your business, in most cases, copywriters are going to work best when you've already developed a voice, you already have clarity and confidence on the way that you speak to your audience and the way that you get your message across. And being a great writer or speaker for your business is a skill that ultimately is going to serve you so well because there's so much to be said and written. So yes, you could hire a copywriter to help write a sales page and some email sequences for you. But what about all those social media posts? What about when you're asked to give a presentation or you're invited to be a speaker? What about that webinar you're going to be running? What about your regular blog posts and content? What about the copy that goes onto the rest of your website? What about when someone asks you to submit an article to their website? What about when someone sends you an email and asks you some questions about your program? If you're constantly outsourcing writing for your business and you're not developing that skill for yourself, then you are going to fall short in so many different spaces. Because writing for your business, as far as I'm concerned, is a non-negotiable baseline skill. And it is something that takes practice. It is something that takes a bit of nuance and understanding what works and what doesn't. And like any skill, it's going to take time for you to develop, and it will get easier as time goes. The longer you spend avoiding learning how to write for your business, the longer you are holding yourself back from being a great writer for your business and getting your copy to do its job, which is to attract and convert your ideal clients and deliver on the outcomes that you promise. So here are my 5 key tips for getting your copy really singing and getting it to convert into paying clients. Number 1 is to find your voice through practice. Now, I would say out of speaking and writing, my preference is speaking. And so I have made it a very specific focus of mine to practice writing in my business and using my strengths in speaking to improve my writing. So some of the things that I've done is I have recorded podcast episodes or recorded videos and have turned that into written content. When I wrote my first book, I actually recorded it as 12 webinars and then got the transcripts of that and edited that into my book. And a lot of the time where I get stuck with writing, I will also meet with a team member or a business bestie just to talk out what I'm trying to write in my business. So if I'm writing an email sequence and I'm really struggling with what I want to say, I'll grab one of my team members and say, I'm just having trouble with my email sequence. Can I just talk something through with you? Or I'll talk it out with Honest Dave, my partner. Or I will get in touch with a business bestie, or I'll take that to a masterminding session with my business mastermind and say, I'm really struggling. I want to say some things in my new email sequence and I feel like I need to talk them out first. So I know I'm a talker. As an extrovert, I think with my mouth. I totally understand that. But that doesn't mean I completely avoid writing. I just use my strengths in speaking to help me build my skills in writing. Now, I know a lot of other people who their strength is in writing, but they've also trained themselves to write in a very formal or very cold manner, and they want to become more conversational in their writing. You don't become more conversational in your writing just by deciding to be more conversational in your writing and then all of a sudden it magically works. It takes practice. So every time I sit to write something in my business, every time I set out to write a new sales page or to update my sales page or to write an email sequence or to write some content, I don't see that as a labor that is not, it's a fruitless labor. I see that as an amazing opportunity for me to practice my writing and refine my messaging and refine the way that I engage and connect with my audience in writing. And so it's so wonderful as an opportunity for that refinement and that practice. So I think that especially for myself, even as a skilled speaker, and someone who loves speaking, if I go back and look at some of my early YouTube videos, I was so stilted and so formal and so breathy when I was speaking in those early videos, even early podcast episodes. There was no way I would record a podcast episode in one take the way that I do for all of my podcast episodes now. And it's taken some practice in being okay with ums and ahs and pauses. It has taken some practice in learning how to sequence the way that I speak and bring concepts together. It's taken some practice in how I set myself up for podcast episodes with key dot points and what things do I need to write down? What things can I just say off the cuff? So that has all taken practice. And every single one of those speaking and writing opportunities and practices has helped me find my voice, has helped me get clear on what I want to say. It has helped me get clear on how I need to explain things to make sure that they're of service and helpful to my audience as well. And so that practice comes from so many different spaces. I practice finding my voice through speaking and through writing. I practice finding my voice through short form content and longer form content. I practice finding my voice through writing and speaking in small, warm, more connected audiences and in larger format ways of writing and speaking as well. So I want you to start looking at every opportunity that you get or can create for yourself to speak and write for your business as an opportunity to practice and an opportunity to find your voice. And if you just take one tip from this podcast episode, let that one be it. I'm going to give you some other tips and I'm going to talk about other ways, phraseology and all those sorts of things. But ultimately, as soon as you see this as a skill and you see every opportunity to speak and write as an opportunity to practice and refine, and you can create those opportunities for yourself, then the faster you're going to build that and the better your copy and your spoken content is going to convert. So just take that one if you need. Now, here's some extra bonus tips because I said I was going to give you 5. So here's my 5 tips. Number 1 is find your voice through practice. Number 2, keep it conversational. Humans want to hear from humans. And it's one of the reasons why my podcasts now are one-take podcasts and I don't edit out the pauses and the ums and the ahs because it's so much more conversational. And in fact, a lot of people comment that they love listening to my podcast because I stop and take breaths. They love listening to my content because they can hear or sometimes see if they watch on video, the cogs are turning and as I'm pulling things together. And so it feels so much more human and so much more connecting. So one of the things that I have definitely had to practice in both my copy and in spoken form in my podcast is staying conversational. It's very easy for us to fall back into old corporate habits or old beliefs around how formal and professional, in inverted commas, we need to be in order to be able to speak and write in our business. And it takes some unlearning for those of us who've been in corporate in particular. So the more that you can keep it conversational, the more that you can practice speaking in your natural voice, the more connecting that content is going to be and that copy is going to be, and the more it's going to convert. So you might think that in order for people to buy from you, they need to have confidence that you're super professional and you are super, you're super eloquent, you use really big words and all of those sorts of things. Ultimately, we want to buy from other human beings. And the number one driver of conversion is connection. And if your words are disconnecting, then they're not necessarily working towards that conversion. So if you want to write copy that converts, make it conversational and make it human. If you want to write copy that boosts your ego and makes you feel fancy, then keep it really cold and corporate and keep it really wordy and eloquent and super refined and polished and never use a contraction again. Yeah. So if you are listening to this podcast episode, you were attracted to it because it said copy that converts, not copy that makes you feel fancy. So if you want copy that converts, my tip is to keep it conversational and human. Number 3, consider the context of the copy. And this is part of the reason why I don't recommend that people hire copywriters until they have practiced and built their confidence in their messaging and their value proposition. Because your copy is going to go into different spaces and speak to different audiences. And those different audiences require different approaches to your copy. So if you think about all of the people who are in your business universe vortex right now, there are going to be some people who are closer to the center of your business. They know you, they trust you, they've learned from you before, they've heard some of your content before, they're really keen on your work, they understand you. So when you speak to that audience, you can talk to them and speak to them in a much more familiar way. You can speak a little bit more advanced in some of the content that you're presenting. You can get straight to the heart of the matter because you know that you're all on the same page. When you're writing copy for an audience that's just fresh to you, so let's say a Facebook ad that's going out to a cold audience, then your copy needs to take into consideration the fact that that audience is colder. And when an audience is colder, they might not feel as familiar with you. They might need to see a little more in terms of the process that you are teaching or building their confidence that you are an expert or someone who has something of value for them. And also, they may be a little earlier in their journey. So when you're speaking to your hottest audience, you can just go straight into, hey, we know that we've got mindset issues around our money, and here's a money block that we need to really take care of. But if they're a colder audience, maybe if you're in the money space, you have to talk about, well, what is a money block? How to tell if you've got money blocks, right? So your copy needs to be appropriate to the context in which you serve up that coffee. And one of the things that I talk about, that was a little munchkin bark, but I'm not going to edit that out because I'm human. One of the things that I talk about in the Takeoff program and in my Leverage and Launch program is understanding your messaging as an ecosystem. There is no one sexy job title or tagline that will work for your hottest and your coldest audiences at once. And if you keep trying to find copy that speaks to everyone, it resonates with no one. So when it comes to your core message in your business, in my programs, that's not one sentence. It's not even a paragraph. Your core message is an ecosystem. And that ecosystem is made up of layers. What do people think is the problem and the solution? What are they hungry for and looking for? What is the content that people in your niche are actively seeking, clicking on, and are really excited to read? What is the light bulb moment you need to facilitate for those people so that they understand or are open to hearing about the deeper transformation that you facilitate? And then at the very center is, what is it that your audience need in order to experience that transformation? So that messaging ecosystem has two jobs. One, it creates copy that has context. And two, it moves your coldest audience through to being warmed up and ready to hear about the transformation that you facilitate faster. So that messaging ecosystem is an active model of your copy so that you know what to share where and what to share with whom in a way that's going to maximize conversion. So instead of viewing your messaging or your copy as sexy taglines or just the right sexy way to say something or a one-size-fits-all sentence that explains your work to anyone and everyone, look at your messaging and your copy as being part of that ecosystem, because we know people need to have multiple touch points with us before they're ready to take action. So make those multiple touch points do their jobs. All right, number 4 is when you are writing copy for me as your ideal client, don't write it as the expert who's above me or in front of me and you've figured it out and you've got everything perfect and you're speaking down to me. That is something that I see a lot in copy and it's not resonant. It doesn't excite or invite or ignite me. Copy that speaks down to your audience is actually a toxic marketing strategy. It's making people feel less than, and it also can bring up a lot for people in terms of that fear or that worry. Oh, I should be further along. Oh, I'm so silly. I don't even know this. Or I can't believe how far behind I am. And I want you to stop and consider, is that really how you want to make people feel? And for most women and non-binary folks that I work with, that is not the model of messaging or the impact that they want to have with their marketing. But that's the only style of copy that's being taught, is this like, I've done it so you can do it too. Or I'm up here and I've got it all figured out and I'm going to help you, fast track your way to being just like me. Yeah. And that type of content where you're speaking down to people, right? You should have figured this out by now. It's way easier than you're making it. You should stop worrying about X. What you need is Y, right? And all of that type of copy is actually telling people that they're wrong. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. You're late, you're late, you're late. You're less successful, you're not organized enough, you're not enough, you're not worthy enough, you're not far enough along. I've got it figured out and you should have too by now, but lucky for you, I'm here, I'm going to swoop in and help you. So if you think about that type of copy as being, I'm above you and I'm speaking down to you, the alternative I want you to think about is you see someone who's struggling with something and you sit on the floor with them and meet them where they're at. When you write your copy from that perspective, it is so much more engaging, it is so much more empowering, and it's also really way better at converting people into paying clients as well, as a lovely little bonus. And I think the reason why it converts so well, especially if you sell to women and non-binary folk, the reason why it works so well is that it comes from a space of, I get it, I understand, and I'm not going to lecture or speak down to you. I'm here to hold your hand through it. And that's a very different vibe. And it also doesn't require that person to subvert themselves to you, right? They don't have to defer any kind of power or authority to you when you are peers. And I want you to think about this in terms of all marketing and businesses and providers and clients that you see out there. The type of business that I operate in, the type of model of business that I am generating and creating is one that doesn't require me to be above anyone else. Just because I am good at social media and marketing and messaging and copy and all of these sorts of things doesn't in any way, shape or form make me better than anyone else. And in fact, most of my clients are way better than me, I would say, right? They're way bigger experts in their field, or they're way more experienced in life, or they've just done more things with their lives, yeah? And none of that makes anyone better than or less than, yeah? And so I don't have to be better than anyone in order to be successful. And I really enjoy that model of business. When I'm working with someone, it's not because I'm better than them. It's because I have a skill to offer them. I have something I can help them to do. But that we are in a peer-to-peer relationship. I am a whole human being and they are a whole human being. I am not broken and need fixed in any way or better than in any way. They are not broken or need fixed in any way or are better than in any way, right? We are in a peer-to-peer relationship. And so when I craft my copy from that perspective. So instead of it me being, above people and speaking down to them and telling them, oh, you should have got this fixed by now, or I've got the answer and I'm going to save you and you're so broken or you're so far behind or you're so undisciplined or disorganized or whatever it is, rather than making people feel less than and speaking down to them, I write my copy through the perspective of, okay, I see where you're struggling. I've struggled with stuff before too, and I wish someone had just held my hand through it. I'm going to come and sit on the floor with you. I'm going to sit on the floor with you and we're going to speak from that space. So if you can visualize that, I think it really does create high connection, high conversion in your copy. And you may even notice the difference now that I've said that. If you have a look at the way that I create podcasts, the way that I write my emails, what I write on my sales pages, you might start to notice some of these subtle and sometimes not so subtle differences between my ads and what you see from others, or from my emails and what you see from others, or my sales pages and what you see from others. And I think that the number one thing that creates that difference is this peer-to-peer relationship rather than a above and below relationship. All right. And then the fifth tip that I have for creating copy that converts is one that is just for the women and non-binary folks out there, because I've never had to give this advice to a straight white man ever before. And I've worked with some straight white men in my time, but I've never had to give them this advice before. This advice is out there for the not straight white men, right? And that advice is ramp up your confidence when you write about your business. There are so many sales pages, emails, offers, posts on social media that I see, and I feel like you're apologizing to me for getting in my way. I feel like you have the most amazing, juicy, amazing piece of stone fruit that you have to offer me. And I'm so hungry for stone fruit. And I really want that juicy piece of stone fruit. And I'm like, just tell me how I can have that stone fruit. And you're like, sorry to interrupt. Oh, I have this stone fruit you might like, right? It's like, stop apologizing. Stop tempering the way that you speak about your work. And I know that there are some people out there who oversell what they can do and over promise on what they can deliver. But 99.9999% of my audience on this podcast are not like that. And so I want you to just review your copy through this lens. Am I speaking about it with the confidence of a straight white man? Or am I apologizing for my presence? Am I underselling what I've got here? Am I speaking through the lens of, well, maybe you might like it, instead of, if you want this, buy that, right? So I want you to just find ways that you can ramp up the confidence with which you write copy, especially when you're writing about your work. Look for things like just, may, might, maybe. Look for where you say thank you. I signed up to someone's webinar the other day, and the welcome email that I got from them said, thank you so much for your interest in my webinar. I was like, shouldn't I be thanking you? You're going to run a live workshop or webinar on a topic I'm really excited for, why are you thanking me? Right? And I just want you to have a look at those things. Even where people sign up and buy something from you, do you say, congratulations, you've just made a great decision on buying this? Or do you say, thanks so much for buying? I mean, I'm all for a great thank you. But if it's everywhere, and if it's all starting to feel like we're doing you a favor by signing up for things and buying from you, then I think that's something that needs to be reviewed. Because we don't give you money as a favor. We don't sign up for your freebies as a favor or because we feel sorry for you. We are signing up for your stuff. We are giving you money because we're excited for what you're going to give us in return. And the sooner you start to see that and shift your perspective on it, the more confidence that infuses your copy and the more magnetic you become. So I just want you to just do a little review of your copy. Go and look at the last few things you've posted on your socials. Go and look at the last few emails that you sent out to your mailing list. Does it feel confident and excited and empowered about what you've got to offer, coming from a sense of deep worthiness? Or does it feel a little apologetic? And if it's feeling a little apologetic, how can you ramp up your confidence within that copy? All right, so they are my 5 hot tips to write copy that converts. Number 1, find your voice through practice. Number 2, keep it conversational and human. Number 3, look at your messaging as an ecosystem rather than a once-off powerful phrase or catchphrase. Number 4, don't speak down to people. Get on the floor with them and treat them as peers. And number 5, ramp up your confidence. I hope you found this really helpful, and I think this is a starting point for a really great conversation. So come on over to the Heart-Centered Soul-Driven Entrepreneurs Facebook community. At any time you can do this with any of my podcast episodes. Just pop #podcast Let me know which episode you've been listening to, and let's continue the conversation there. You might want to share an ask a follow-up question, or start a conversation with people about what's been covered in today's podcast episode. Today was episode number 285. So you can find the relevant links and show notes over at tashcorbin.com/285. Let's continue the conversation. Until next time, I cannot wait to see you shine. I'll see you next week for another episode of the Heart-Centered Business Podcast. Bye for now. Would you like more tips, tools, and resources to help you grow your heart-centered business? Head to tashcorbin.com today.